In this video, we're going to cover the E-6A error code. And basically the E-6A error code is going to come up on the control when one of our 12 temperature probes has failed, or our heatsink probe, which is located on our I/O board, or last but not least, we actually have that built-in temperature probe to our I/O board that monitors the temperature of our top of our cabinet here. So it could be any one of those probes. Now, when that comes up, it's basically showing that that's an open circuit and that basically there's a wire inside there that is broken. So let's talk a little bit about when that comes up. Remember, the heater that has failed with that E-6A, it will tell you which heater it is in the error logs like we've talked about on some of the other error codes. So with it doing that, it will also go ahead and disable that heater from being available until that issue is resolved. Once we get that issue resolved, then we can go ahead and go back in and turn that heater back on so that we can continue to use it. Now, a couple of parts that we're going to want to take to the job site with us for a good first-time fix rate is, number one, most likely a heater assembly, because remember, those temperature probes are built into the heater, and it would require a heater replacement to replace the temperature probe. Now, the second item is going to be our heatsink probe, which is up top here, and that is a replaceable item, so it could be unplugged and then replaced. The third last item is going to be our I/O board, which is going to be probably a pretty rare situation, but it is something to keep in mind and to be aware of. So now let's cover troubleshooting on what this looks like. So right here on the side, we have all of our 12 temperature probe wires that are built into our heaters. So what we could do is we could actually unplug them. Remember, the error logs is going to tell us which heater is faulty. So we could go ahead and unplug them here, use our multimeter to go ahead and check for an open circuit. If it shows an open circuit, then we can go ahead and proceed with replacing that heater assembly. However, if it checks out well and it does not show an open circuit, we need to come back up here to our I/O board and check it up here to make sure this harness is not bad, where it plugs into our I/O board for all 12 temp probes. But if that checks out well, then we can jump over here to our heatsink probe. Now we can go ahead and unplug this heatsink probe and then check right here with our meter, checking for an open circuit again. And if that tests out fine, then we know our heatsink probe is good. However, if it doesn't, we can replace that because it is a replaceable item. And then the last thing is actually going to be our ambient air temperature probe up here. And remember, that is built into the I/O board and is not a replaceable item separately. It would require an I/O board replacement. So that's where the I/O board would come into play as far as a replaceable part within this error code. So those are some of the troubleshooting tips that we would use to troubleshoot this in the field on the job site, as well as some of the parts we would take with us to maintain that first-time fix rate.